this here that we're. All right.
No worries. Yeah, we got it.
Kristen, one thing that maybe since we have some new people in the room and we don't have any provider presentations, maybe we can kind of go around the room right now and get some updates from each one of the providers on what they're doing, what challenges they may be having, and any kind of announcements that they have to make.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. Deanna, do you want to start us off?
Sure, Deanna Rumsey, the Independent Center. So we continue to partner with the city and have robust conversations about upcoming changes and proposed changes regarding routes. So there are a couple of routes, Nevada, Flat Boulder, and can't remember, there's one more. It's going to be up for conversation in terms of kind of increasing routes along that corridor. So we're going to be in conversation about that. And then we always talk about paratransit and challenges that we experience with them. But yeah, so that's kind of all the news that's fit to print from the Independent Center.
Awesome, thank you. How about Rosa?
So we're working on our paratransit. We are partnering with the Fountain Senior Center, and they are going to provide our paratransit for 60 years old and below that they don't get funding for. So they're going to help us do that, and we're going to compensate them for helping us with our paratransit in Fountain. We're also working on routes to be more efficient for our citizens and be able to take care of our drivers too, with working in some breaks in there. And that has become a big challenge without, prolonging our route to like 2 hours for one loop. We've been working on how to, how we're doing that, but we've kind of found a solution. So that's what we're doing here in Fountain.
Thank you. That's a really cool partnership that you guys are doing. Thank you. Bridget?
So at Community Intersections, we are just working on trying to expand some routes, trying to find drivers so that we can be more open door. We've been working with TRE to provide transportation to other agencies who don't have transportation options. So that's kind of been our main focus transportation wise.
Great. Dick, do you have anything else to add?
Sorry, looking for the right buttons on here. No, it's just
okay.
It's nice to see everybody again, because I've been driving routes because we're just getting up this a full complement of drivers going on, and we're still facing that challenge still going on, probably like everybody else, but we're slowly working through it and expanding our routes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was going to ask about that. A lot of the driver challenges and recruiting and everything going on. Okay, and then Glenn, do you have anything that you want to add? What's going on in your world?
Just very briefly, coming up July 5th is the super call. I don't know how best to describe this other than a buffet of funding choices. It'll include 5310, 5311, FASTER, and other state funding. So be on the lookout for that. You should be hearing about it next week. I was hoping to have more of an update by today, but that didn't happen. Also, we're conducting our on-site reviews that we do annually. There's only one subrecipient that we're reviewing in the Pikes Peak region. That's Envita. That should be later this summer. Challenges right now too. It's very interesting. Maybe somebody could speak to this. We're experiencing a high amount of turnover in key transit positions throughout Region 2 with the transit agencies. So I'm just curious as to why that's happening. Outside of that, that's it.
Awesome, thank you. I have noticed some e-blasts saying people are leaving and moving on to different things. So yeah, that is interesting. Tyler, tell us about MedRide. If I got that correctly, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Tyler with MedRide, really non-emergent medical transportation, looking to partner with different organizations and companies in the El Paso County, Teller County, Park County areas, just to kind of bring awareness to who we are, what we can provide from a transportation point of view, and seeing if we can help you guys out in any way, or any organization out in any of those counties. So here to kind of learn. I met with Laura last week. We had a great conversation, and she gave me some insight into these meetings, and passed it along. So thought it would be a potential good fit.
Oops. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
And
Thank
then
you.
maybe we'll pop back. We have Allison and Valerie. Maybe we'll pop back up. Sharon just joined us, so I don't forget, and then I'll go back in order. So Sharon, we're just sharing a little bit about what's going on in our world, any challenges that you're facing, anything coming up. Oh, and you're muted right now.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay, I am going to be representing the Fountain Valley Senior Center, but I am temporary. Jolene has resigned, and we will be getting, someone else who will be permanent. But because I was on for the city of Fountain, I told them I would do it on a temporary basis. I will not be doing all of the things Jolene was doing, like being chairman and all that stuff. I won't be doing that, but I will be representing the city or the organization.
So we're saying
So-
we can't recruit you to become a chair in our next item of action.
Good.
Got you. Thank you for joining us.
Sure.
And then Allison, if you want to tell us who you're with, I know who you're with, but then a little bit what's going on in your world.
Hey, good morning. I'm with Mountain Metro Transit. I just popped in here for Jacob is usually here. I think he's going to be here in about 10 minutes or so. So he'll pop on. I don't really know where he's at with updates. Let's see. I know it sounds like from Deanna, it looks like he's working with the Independent Center on some routes. I know he's working with Laura on gathering some information from our paratransit as to who's riding and where they're going and information like that for stuff that you guys are working on. So not really sure what kind of update to give right now, but let me know and I'll answer some questions the best I can.
How's your driver situation, Allison?
Actually, I think it's fairly well. There is still quite a bit of turnover. When we're speaking with para, I think we just hired a class of 7 and ended up with 2 of them. But we are fully staffed as far as what we need for paratransit right now. Fixed route is still could use some drivers. So if you know anybody, certainly head them our way. I did want to pop out, and I don't know that this is the correct time, but I was Rocky Mountain Pace reached out to me earlier this week or last week, and they're actually, of course, struggling with drivers like the rest of us, but they are struggling with actually securing buses. So they were down at Creative Bus Sales, and it sounds like it's going to be a little while out for buses. And so they were having conversations with us about what kind of transportation we could assist. And I know that they've reached out to Goodwill and Vita. I don't know about Fountain Valley, but they've reached out to a couple others, and it seems like we're going to try and patchwork some things they need for services, but they might be a great group to have on this call, this committee.
Yeah, Allison, if you can give us the contact you've been working with, we actually have, I've been sending emails out to somebody with Rocky Mountain Pace, but I'm not even for sure if they're still there. So
Okay.
yeah, if you don't mind shooting me the contact, I would connect with them and see if we can get them to these meetings, because I think that would be super helpful.
Perfect. I will do.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Goodwill also does vehicle maintenance and has a partnership with them. And we have a gentleman named Stacy that we work with. I could always ask them too. Is that the same contact?
Same contact. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, just to know. I didn't know they were having those issues. So hopefully, because I think Goodwill does have some buses, some older ones that we're not using that would be helpful. So.
Oh, they would
Thanks, Allison.
probably love that.
Yeah, thank you for the update.
Yeah.
And then Valerie, let us know what's going on in your world.
I'm Valerie with Silver Key, and we have been analyzing our bus drivers, and we've had about a 50% turnover in the last year, but random reasons. So we have done some wage adjustments in our bus drivers' pay ranges, and we just hired 3 new part-time employees, so hopefully they'll work out. We hired 2 full-time and they did not work out. One just said it was too hard, and the other one, he just didn't show up, kind of like. So, but we've had like 50 applicants and we can't get them to respond after they apply. So we try to call them. So out of that number, we have had 7 interviews. So
Wow.
it's pretty tough on that. We're really excited. We were awarded the MMOF, a 3-year grant, and we're working on that and how we're going to implement that. So included some vehicles and support for additional rides. So we need to hire bus drivers.
Awesome. Thank you. Congratulations. Yeah, I think just speaking from that world for everyone, I think that is just such a thing that's happening is you get 50 to get 3 or 4 that show up. I mean, job fairs, you name it. I think it's happening across the board. And I don't know what the magic answer is, but if anyone kind of comes up with tips and tricks as you are doing this, please share that as well. Trying to figure this out. So I think, oh, go ahead.
So this is Melissa, and I just have a comment / question. I wonder, has anyone reached out to the Pikes Peak Workforce Center and expressed to them the lack of drivers in the region? And off and on, the Workforce Center will do special initiatives, things around workforce needs. And, I haven't heard anything lately, partly because I just haven't been staying connected to them. But if nobody has reached out, it might be time for Laura. I see Deanna has a hand up. But that might be an opportunity for some outreach, and I'll turn it over to Deanna.
I was just going to ask if there's a way to kind of embed some metrics in the application posting so that for those applicants that are applying, you're getting some real-time feedback as to what prompted them to apply. And then you could kind of increase those pieces because it sounds like to me there's kind of a mismatch and trying to figure out how we can better position the advertisements to attract more candidates who are actually interested in kind of following through with the process. So kind of getting that real-time feedback from folks, like what prompted you to apply, what would make you more likely to take the position, you know what I mean? So, just like 1 or 2 quick questions would then give you some marketing feedback in vivo to potentially increase your candidate pool. Just a thought.
Yeah, that's a really good point, trying to capture that, because you think you're right. People either not matched correctly or they're just applying just to apply. It'd be nice to get that feedback to see what's going on.
And I will stress, and I think Glenn will also stress, as sort of the funders in the room, is making for sure that you're building into your proposals increases that are needed in order to keep your drivers or recruit new drivers. That's something that's going to be important, specifically, with the super call, as Glenn mentioned, making for sure you're building that into your budget because it's just a necessary thing at this point.
And I think it's a good point, Laura. I know a couple of subrecipients who have done just that, and they've attracted some drivers. So apparently it has some success.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, did we hear from everyone? I think so. Did you, when I say Melissa and Laura are helping me navigate this since I'm new, and legit, my dog ate like my notes that I took with them a while ago. So I'm kind of bouncing around, but we are looking for more people. So we're on number 6 action items. We are looking for, I'm technically a chair. I call myself the default because I was the second chair when Dave was the chair, and he took a new position and has a new adventure. So we're looking for someone, I'm happy to fill this role at the time. I just think sometimes it makes more sense to find someone more in the transit world. With Goodwill, I'm more of a business development person and I do assist with grants and things like that, but I'm not always the transit expert. So anyone is welcome to consider the chair position along with a second chair officer. So I don't know if you guys want to discuss that now, or if Melissa and Laura wanted to bounce down to section 8 and things like that. You guys let me know.
No, actually, a couple of things I want to bring up, and Deanna can speak up here in just a second, but Diana Van Auken, who is typically on this call, they are actually it's from Teller County. She's from Teller County Senior Coalition. She usually here in person or on this call. Many of you guys know her. She has expressed interest in being an officer. So while she wasn't able to be here today, I'm glad they're doing strategic planning. I'm always pushing people to do that. She is interested, and Deanna has her hand raised because we've talked to her a little bit as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to support in whatever capacity you guys need. So if you are looking for a co-chair or a vice chair, I would be happy to lend support in that realm.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. How do you guys want to do that? Is this a formal, Melissa and Laura, is this a formal nomination, or are we just discussing this for next time? You can let me know.
So I think that, depending on the role, again, we're looking for a chair. Well, we're looking for chair, right? And then second vice chair, because Kristen wants to move back to vice chair role. So between Deanna and Diana, if Laura needs to kind of follow back up with those two gals, see which one really wants to be the chair, and then we could bring it back up next month, or Deanna is here, and if she wants to say she wants to be the chair. But again, we could wait until next month and then formally put that out there just to honor, which roles Deanna and Diana both want. Does that sound okay to folks? Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds perfect. And
Yes.
I'm always happy to be like a
Yes.
third chair backup if you guys are gone. So,
Yeah.
however that works.
So I think, I'd like to kind of kick off the conversation as we meet with these three. Is there any others in this room that would be interested in joining the leadership team of the MCC? And I want everybody to kind of understand, you can't see my head.
Get in there.
No, it's not here. I want everybody to kind of understand what the commitment is. So once a month, we actually meet as a leadership team, PPACG and the chairs, vice chair and second vice chair. We meet and just talk about the agenda, and if there's any special speakers that we want to bring on board, really those folks are the ones that reach out to those special speakers. And just help formulate the day-to-day or month-to-month meeting. So that's the main kind of request that PPACG has of the leadership team of the MCC. Now there's going to be some kind of things that we're going to talk about later on in this meeting. It's going to be a little more intensive in terms of looking at the structure of the MCC that we'll be leaning on the leadership team to kind of help us out with. But other than that, that's sort of the role.
So
Yeah. So right now we have Deanna, Kristen, and Diana that are interested. And next month, between now and next month, if there's others that are interested, we will entertain that in the next meeting. And we can make formal nominations and hopefully vote on new officers at the July meeting.
Awesome. Thank you guys for clarifying that, and thank you for your interest. I'm super excited to have some more people involved, and glad you guys are all here today. We're gonna jump down to number 8, right? I don't know if we have any. Do we have any new membership appointments to nominate? I don't think so. Okay.
Not at this point. Tyler, we'll be talking to you guys about, as you attend some of these meetings, whether you guys want to be formally a part of the MCC. But we can talk about that later.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks, Laura.
Cool.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to jump down to number 8, training, information sharing, and coordination. And I'll start it, and then hopefully Laura and Melissa can kind of add on, since my notes were eaten by my dog, but I have most of it. But Melissa and Laura and I had a really great conversation earlier in the month, and part of what we talked about was a little bit of like kind of blowing up the MCC. And for someone like me, who I've attended for many, many years in different capacities and assisted with grants and just learning what this committee does, was kind of reminding folks, and I think every month we might have some new folks. So talking about the purpose maybe every time at the meeting, so we're all clear on what the purpose of the committee is and how we all fit into that. And sometimes I was saying, sometimes it makes sense to have case managers or different people from our organizations attend these meetings, depending on what we're talking about and the focus. So we kind of talked about an idea of making it a little bit less formal and not having as much voting and different things, and kind of blowing it up, even expanding to different parts of the county. I apologize, my son is stomping upstairs. And just kind of getting a little more diversity going in different sections. And maybe that would be easier for folks if there wasn't the voting member and that kind of commitment. We might get some more folks involved. So those are just some ideas we tossed around. I know there's a lot of formalities and structure that we have to go through, discussing bylaws and kind of blowing up all that. But just wanted to set the tone as someone like me who doesn't always know the purpose and where I fit in. We would kind of revisit that every meeting and then take that back to our organization and possibly get, more people involved that would have a say or help us with some of the things that our agencies are struggling or working on. So I don't know if that helps Melissa and Laura to kind of set the discussion, or how you wanted to kind of talk about that.
Okay. If downstairs wasn't working. No.
We'll be on in 1 second.
Yeah, no worries. So anyone else have any feedback on that kind of idea? I mean, I don't know how the formalities will work, or, being new to the committee or being a seasoned, member. That's kind of what we've been talking about, is just revisiting the purpose and what we're here to do. And then who does that look like, or what kind of stakeholders do we want at the table? So, oh, Sharon, I didn't know if you were going to say something.
I think it's a good idea. I think it would, even if you have a voting member there from an organization, if they could bring other people just to see what is going on and how it works, particularly people who have a pretty significant stake as an employee, I think it would be excellent. I really do. So
Great.
I'm definitely for that.
Great. Anyone else? Thoughts, or, Tyler being new, anyone that, I think one thing we talked about was always talking about the purpose in the meeting, or having it in the agenda somewhere, reminding us what the purpose is. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of that in the next couple bullet items. Because like I had said, every time is great. We get new people. So we want to kind of revisit that purpose and remind ourselves what we're working on. And then I might turn it over to Melissa and Laura. Which you're muted.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am unmuted now. sorry, we had to crash the upstairs conference room, and apparently they were supposed to have a managers meeting in here.
Even
Right
though
now.
it wasn't on the calendar, because they're managers and they don't have to put it on the calendar.
So, yeah, so I think one of the things that we've been discussing kind of internally is this group is an operational group. It's an operational group type of folks that are on this call that are dealing with day-to-day challenges within the operations of their programs. And so we were talking about sort of how the formality, Paul is on, sort of the formality of these meetings may deter people from participating, and also may deter people from even though you're here, having the space to really talk about what's going on in your organization and some opportunities to coordinate. I heard from just on this call today for us to just kind of, when we went around the table and talked about what was going on in our organizations, some immediate things that came up as great coordinating opportunities. So when Allison was talking about the issues with Rocky Mountain PACE, you know, Kristen stepping in and saying, hey, we may be able to help out with that. That's the purpose of these meetings, is so that we're working together to ensure services continue and enhance. And so I think that I'm kind of a looser type of individual in terms of want creativity to be fostered through these meetings. And so how can we kind of, you know, loosen things up as a committee so that we're more of a working group together and less of Robert's rules. So that's sort of what we want to kind of discuss today and get some feedback from you guys, because I think we've lost a little bit of the essence of what these meetings are supposed to be about. And there is some core things that are tied to what we do as an MCC. So, you know, I've mentioned several times in these meetings that PPACG is in charge of working with MMT as well as the human service providers on this call to put together a coordinated human service transportation plan. And it's important that we're not just meeting, you know, once every 4 years to be talking about coordinated efforts. That means a plan sits on a shelf once it is made. And so it's important for us to kind of focus on some of these coordination opportunities for us to really work together. And what that entails is having the right people in the room for conversations. And so I think that's where Kristen was talking about, you know, as we have different topics that we put out there in our agendas, that making these meetings more open to your full organization and making for sure that we have the right people on the call for different topics. So say, for instance, we want to talk about, you know, dispatch challenges, you know, or how we can coordinate, you know, rides through either standard referrals and things like that. Well, who needs to be in the room for those conversations? So that's sort of our thoughts in terms of kind of blowing up the MCC to make this more of a working group, that we're tackling these things together and not separately in silos. Any thoughts on that? Any thoughts on kind of how this current structure is really supporting what you need from this group?
I think Deanna has her hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, Laura, I really appreciate that. I was just thinking as you were speaking that part of who's missing at the table are folks who are transit dependent, right? So there are a couple of folks on the call who utilize transit on a regular basis, but for the most part, figuring out a way to kind of connect with those other community members and get their voices in the room so we can kind of hear direct feedback from where are the gaps and what is going really well, right? Because we always want to amplify and enhance things that are going really well, and we always want to address those things that are gaps or opportunities for us to kind of do it better. So I think reaching out to folks who are primarily transit dependent, which I feel like as gas prices go up and up, that might be a bigger and bigger contingent population. But you know, all that to say that there's certainly an opportunity for us to kind of branch out and have more people in the room and more diverse voices. So figuring out, connecting with those, and then as we look at the legislative session, what are some mechanisms that we can harness from an elected official perspective to get them in the room? Because again, when we talk to people, they're like, oh, transit pulls last. Nobody cares about transit. Transit intersects everything. It intersects economics, it intersects business, it intersects public health, health equity. Transit is everywhere, and helping people understand and appreciate that intersectionality and the incredible importance. If you can't transport folks to people, I mean, places, it doesn't matter how amazing your services are, they're not going to be able to utilize them. And then businesses are going to be screaming that they're going under. So helping people understand and appreciate the intersectionality and the incredible importance of transportation. So that's me.
Yeah, and I like that, Deanna. I think the whole purpose is how can we make these meetings more open to, you know, the public as well as to others in our organizations, and have some more broader strokes of individuals that are either representing individuals that are dependent upon transit, or, you know, even, you know, folks like, you know, the chamber, those types of individuals to be at the table for these discussions, I think is important. So I would like for, I mean, to kind of give you some steps as we sort of blow this up per se. You know, we're going to meet as a leadership team with whoever our new leadership team of the MCC, and bring together some suggested changes to the structure, AKA bylaws, to bring forth to the board. So the board actually has to approve any bylaw changes of any of our committees. And we would run that through our suggestions through this committee, the formal committee, before we would make those suggestions to the board. So we've talked a little bit about the bylaws in the past. I think we've kind of honed in on some opportunities to, you know, kind of accomplish the things that we've been talking about this morning. And so moving forward, I think it would be good if we really kind of put a good foundation under us so that we can be effective as a group and be effective together. You know, I want to make for sure that these meetings are meaningful. We've talked about with Kristen, you know, is the cadence of these meetings, how often we have these meetings, does it make sense to have them monthly? Is it something, you know, we could have a more purposeful meeting quarterly, or, you know, bi-monthly, things like that? Or, you know, what are these things that we want to kind of uncover to make them more efficient and effective for everybody? So.
Thank you all. That was great feedback. And yeah, I think a lot of cool things to look forward to and kind of blow this up. And I understand we got to do it the correct way through the process. So thank you. Anyone else have any feedback before we jump on to the next item?
I just wanted to mention real quick that although I'm an observer and I've been underground during COVID, I'm starting to pop my head out now and visit some subrecipients, but I find these meetings incredibly valuable. And I hope nobody walks away thinking that I don't think we're really accomplishing anything, because you're accomplishing a ton. And I'm hearing some different things out there. So I'd like to bring them to the meeting in the future as I find out more and get more information. But this is an incredibly valuable format to me.
Awesome. Thank you, Glenn, for that. That's awesome. Okay, anyone else? Okay, looks like we're talking about the mobility guide, and I might need a refresher. Are we kind of, I think everyone had a chance to update their agency stuff. So I don't know where we're at with the mobility guide.
Yeah, so we've actually launched it on our website. It's been circulated a few times around to the group. those of you who are familiar with the yellow book, we're going to have kind of a same format of distribution in terms of our website is going to be sort of the continual updated version. And then we are looking to put the guide in print soon. And we just got the Spanish version of it. So we did get the guide translated into Spanish, at least right now. So there's some opportunities to continue to enhance this. This is the first time that I think we've actually had a finished product. I think several years ago, somebody prior to me was trying to put this together, but we actually have a finished product. So we want to pop onto the screen, if you allow me to share, where you can find that, and I'll put the address in the chat. And feel free to share this broadly with folks. Also send me a request via email if you guys want some paper copies, some actual, paper copies to be able to hand out to folks. Give me just a second. I'm sharing my screen. All right. Here is the mobility guide. I just kind of want to orient you guys to this. As I mentioned in a couple of emails, the information that we pulled for the mobility guide was actually pulled by a military fellow that we had back last fall. And she actually went to your websites, called your organizations to get the information about how an individual can book services and what kind of services your organizations provided. It was kind of a little bit of a wake-up call to some of you guys, because the information that she pulled from websites was information sometimes that needed to be updated from y'all's websites. So that's the thing, as we continue to keep this guide up to date, making for sure that what's in the guide, please look back to this, and what's on your websites or what your dispatchers are communicating matches up with what's going on in the guide. So what's listed in the guide. So I keep looking at the wrong screen to navigate. So we have this broken up into regional transportation. So this is actually talking mostly about bus staying. And then it's broken up by county and then services within the counties. So obviously El Paso County has a lot more options in terms of transportation, but each one of those options we tried to break out in county specific areas. And so we have the level of service definitions so that customers can know, if they do need help beyond curb to curb service or door to door services, who is available to provide door to door services. So it just further defines that. Here's the bus staying outrider information. And then we have also some, we structured this guide so that it's not just for specialized transit folks to be able to use, but this is for anybody and everybody to be able to utilize this guide in their, trying to get places. So there's some cool things about, how can they get from here to Cripple Creek, or how can somebody from Cripple Creek to get to here? So different things that can be used for recreational purposes, as well as, transit purposes for essential services. Some of you guys had multiple layers of information. So Mountain Metro had several different types of services, so they land in different parts of the guide. But this is the structure, the standard structure that we tried to present to each one of the present on each one of the services that are available. We actually went out to the Fountain Valley Senior Center with this information and asked them, what's the best way for this to be presented to you? And we got some great feedback from them. You know, we had the phone number way down on the list. They said it would be great if the phone number was right underneath the name of the organization and how to contact them, just so we're not trying to find where that is. One of the cool things that we did is we included this additional information sheet here, or information section here. And these are just nuances about each one of the organizations. So, you know, different holidays that you're open, different holidays that you're not. How often do you need to, I mean, how far in advance do you need to book your ride? Things like that are just good, helpful tips and more specific tips about each one of the organizations. So I would love for you guys to kind of explore this, look around, utilize it, send it out to your customers. Also use it as a base. If you can't provide a ride for an individual, here is sort of a roadmap of who you could refer them to. And so I think that's going to be helpful for us as folks. I've gotten a lot of feedback from providers already. Like, we didn't know that this agency did this after looking at the guide. So these are the things that we're supposed to talk about in these meetings. Now we have it all written out. So utilize this as a tool. And I will pop the link to this into the chat. Is there any questions? Deanna?
So I'm also on TTAC, and there's a lovely gentleman, Ron, and I can't remember his last name, but he's a senior ambassador, and he is like a walking encyclopedia for all things fixed route. And one of the things that MMT, with the changes and kind of you know, folks coming and going, and is that he's really struggling. Oh, God bless you. Kind of share his information with the leadership there, because literally he's like memorized all of the fixed routes and, you know, how to get from one place to another and where are the free shuttles. So he's a wonderful source for information, but I'm just wondering if there's an ability to kind of let folks know, at least from an MMT standpoint, that they have a senior ambassador, that there is somebody that they can like literally call and say, I want to go to Seven Falls. How do I get there? You know, or things like that, and that there's that resource available. I would love to kind of create an AI where we could digitally download Ron's information and then stick it in like all of the major hubs. And so that, you know, seniors could just go, I want to go here. And then it just prints it out. Because, you know, sometimes our senior folks really just like that kind of hands-on tactile thing, you know, kicking it old school. So like the combination of AI and then also like the old school, like triptychs, that way old school. So just a thought.
No, I think that's something great. I had noodled on a long time ago. How can we put together sort of trips for folks? You know, things that for seniors in particular, that like how can they get to a Rockies game in Denver? You know, what are some, how can you get around? What are some routes to go to, like you said, Seven Falls? Some of the things, some of the attractions that are going on. Melissa and I have even talked about how do we put together, you know, kind of a how-to of how to get around Arts Week or Arts Month to the different activities and events that are going on with some of these things. And we haven't quite figured out the right platform for that. But I think that that's something that I think would be cool to go alongside the mobility guide. It's just, how to get around to some of these things that you either really need to do or really want to do. And so while this is kind of the guide, sort of a baseline, I think having some of those sort of kind of travel book tips sort of thing I kind of think about would be cool to kind of put together. So I'd like to explore that, Deanna. And I think that we've been talking internally a little bit about how we, PPACG, may be a little bit more helpful in trying to direct seniors to some of these things. So I think a partnership with you guys would be great. So cool. Love it. Any other comments on the mobility guide, questions?
And then one more quick thing, if this is on the web, I'm just thinking of some of our folks who are in the deaf community, is there like a link that they can kind of click on sign language interpretation, just to kind of give them like not necessarily like that the whole thing would be interpreted, certainly not, but that there was some kind of mechanism like for more information or for interpretation services, and here's where you can go for additional assistance.
Deanna, I'd love to work with you on that. We actually don't have that. It's not something we've really, this is new. So, and it's also something that I'd like to learn a little bit more about for the Yellow Book too, is how can we make this more accessible?
Sure.
I know that we did work with our designer to try to make it where it can be used with readers as well as possible. Yeah, I'd love to talk to you guys more about some of those things that we could include to make it more accessible to folks. And not just from the perspective, I mean, we are translating it in Spanish because that's the number one population of speakers outside of English speakers here. But we know that there's others that need access to this. So kind of figuring out different ways and different tools that we may be able to use, and even cost-effective tools, because getting this translated was actually quite expensive, more expensive than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I think we could use some helpful tips on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's connect offline and then we can kind of noodle around some potential solutions.
All right. I think we're done with that, Kristen.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I'm excited to review it myself so I can make sure that I know, how to refer and make sure our Goodwill folks know too. So then we're on item C, the needs assessment update. Back to you, Laura.
Yes, needs assessment update. So, yeah, I can stop share. Ooh, there we go.
All right.
All right, needs assessment update. So we received a grant to do a needs assessment through Nadtc. I've mentioned that several times on these calls as well as in emails. I really need y'all's help in accomplishing this. So I'm really thankful for our core group of Fountain Valley, Silver Key, and Invita for sending us some of their ride data so that we can start mapping out kind of, and Jacob's actually working on his too. So we're going to have from Mountain Metro, from Silver Key, Fountain Valley, and Invita ridership data that is going to show where people are being picked up and where people are being dropped off, and being able to map that out to say, okay, here's the areas in El Paso County, and this is El Paso County specific. Here are the areas in El Paso County that are outreach opportunities, because we're just not serving that area, because we, as demand response folks, basically it's dependent upon the individual to know about the service available to them to actually communicate that. And so I think that it's important for us to identify, geographically some opportunities of where we're not getting a lot of traction in terms of customers, but also understanding just service gaps in general. So if we primarily have folks, and there's a lot of services available in Colorado Springs, but we have folks in Peyton or in Calhoun or even up in Monument that are not accessing any transit services. And this grant is actually specifically focused on specialized transportation, but specialized transportation is also served, or individuals that utilize specialized transportation are also served by paratransit in some cases, also served by, even regular transit services, depending upon where they're located, what the ride is, that kind of thing, and what level of service. And so we're kind of looking at it, honing in on specialized transit, but also looking at it broadly in terms of transit services. So what my call is today is the structure of this study is we're looking at hard data, like I mentioned that some of the providers are giving us. We also are going to be looking at census data, just the core data that's in every needs assessment. But what I need from this group is some help with some focus group formulation. So while we're doing some surveys out in the community, we really had a focus in this proposal for this grant to do focus groups. And the reason why we did that is a couple of things. Bandwidth on our part, and didn't want to, have to do this huge survey across the county. We just didn't have the bandwidth to that. But we also wanted, from the focus group perspective, more of that qualitative data about services and service challenges for individuals that utilize transportation services. So there's 4 main groups that we're trying to recruit people to for their input. One is individuals with disabilities. So folks that really depend upon transit to get to work, to get to essential services, and just around in general, grocery store, those types of things. 2 is actually caregivers of individuals. So that's either caregivers of a senior or caregivers of an individual with disabilities that they are really having to manage the care of that individual and getting them place to place. So maybe they don't have a handicap accessible vehicle, or they don't have, the means to be able to transport that individual, and how are they having to navigate the system to get them transported. 3 is looking at from a more of a DEI perspective of how can we, what are some groups that we're not really plugged into. So the Hispanic community, and figuring out, from their perspective, do they really even know that there's options available for them and for their family members for transit services. Some of our underrepresented populations in our community, trying to really target them. And that can occur within several different focus group meetings, just to be able to address their needs, and being able to go to them for their feedback. And then the 4th one, or actually there's 5, sorry, brain. The 4th one is actually providers. So those of you who participated in the Tri-County Study focus group meetings, we actually had a focus group meeting of individuals that utilize transit and individuals that represent individuals that depend upon transit. And then we had a separate focus group that was the providers. So we met with the individuals that utilize transit and the individuals that represent individuals that utilize transit or depend upon transit first, took their responses and brought them to the providers to discuss. And so the same kind of concept is going to happen here, is a sort of a response. The provider group is going to be working on responding to the comments that that these other focus groups have put together. The last group is the veterans group. So looking at it from veteran transportation needs, we all know on this call that that's something very difficult for them to navigate. Many of you guys have taken trips, long trips, to get them to the VA hospital and those types of situations, just because they can't navigate well their care. And so that's a subset group that we're trying to target. So our timeline of completing these focus group meetings is actually, we're going to kick them off in July and complete them in August. We also have funding available after the completion of the needs assessment for the providers and for individuals that participated in focus groups, the other focus groups, to work on a solution that we can put some money towards to help address one of these needs that have been identified. So my call from this group, because you guys are the core providers as well as represent individuals that need transportation, is to help me in terms of either helping host a focus group meeting, helping recruit individuals to a focus group meeting. Also, any data that you have available that will help support this project. I mentioned the core agencies that are providing us information. 211 is also another agency that's providing us information about transportation needs. But anybody else on this call that may have, ridership data that they would be willing to share to help kind of paint a better picture of what services are being provided and what services need to be provided in the future, that would be great. We actually have a steering committee meeting tomorrow. Tomorrow at, I believe it's at 10 o'clock. Yes, tomorrow at 10 o'clock. I've sent that out to everyone, I think on this whole group. If you have not received the invite to that, the steering committee is really to kind of help identify dates that may work well for individuals to help, work well for the steering committee group to help with focus groups, as well as kind of seeing where we are right now in terms of our data analysis and data collection. So that's at 10 o'clock tomorrow. I'd like some more representation from providers in our steering committee. We've had one provider so far attend a steering committee meeting. So it'd be great if we could have some more representation from providers on those meetings. So, all right, any questions?
So Laura, have you already started the focus groups?
We have not. So we will be.
So can I ask a really quick, sorry,
Yeah.
to cut you off, but can I ask a really quick question then? So, so from a qualitative data perspective, focus groups can be really hairy in terms of analysis. That's a really heavy lift that you're taking on.
Yeah.
So might I suggest, so there's a technique called nominal group technique. So it's very similar. So you get people in a room who are coming together around a specific issue, but then you're able to get qualitative and quantitative data. It's a lot more structured and it's a lot less of a heavy data lift in terms of the analysis, because within the context, it's only, you do it for 2 hours. But within the context of that 2 hours, you're able to get the quantitative and qualitative and condense it down, and you ask the group to kind of come to a consensus and start kind of rank choicing what are some of the things that kind of bubble to the top. So maybe, again, you and I can kind of talk offline, but I'm just thinking like how to effectively and efficiently get you guys the information you need without having to like boil the ocean, because these groups can get real hairy. If I can kind of help you find a technique that still gets you the information you want, but doesn't necessarily create additional work for you, that might be beneficial. So we can talk about it.
Yeah, no, I think that would be great. And I didn't mention this, but we've actually contracted out with a consulting company to help with our data analysis piece of it. So really, it's just me getting them the data, and then they are going to do the data analysis of it, as well as they're helping me with sort of structuring the conversations of these groups. But I think, Deanna, it'd be good to have you in. I meet with them every other Friday, so maybe we can have you hop on a call with me and them to kind of help formulate this a little bit more. So any other questions, comments? All right, I'm going to resend out the invite for tomorrow in case anybody missed it. Val, I see your comment in the chat. Yes, you can send those changes to me. Unfortunately, it's kind of too late to make those changes in the printed copy. So, but I can make those changes online. It's just because it has been at this point translated. So, yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm excited about the focus groups and kind of talking more about tomorrow at the meeting that we're going to have. So sorry, Laura, I just keep going back to you. With the Tri-County study update. Yeah, is that a quick update on kind of where we're at with that, or?
Yeah, so for you guys who participated in Tri-County study, in the Tri-County study, we actually, just to kind of give you guys where we are in that process, we're wrapping up the Tri-County study right now. Next month, I'll probably try to have Jason O'Brien. He's been the PPACG project lead on that. And the Tri-County study was looking at, a vast array of things, from broadband to, road construction to transit to, emergency services. It's a pretty robust study. It's not a plan, it's a study. And so it's identifying the needs within these communities. And I appreciate you guys that participated in those calls, the focus group calls. Tri-County study obviously is looking at, challenges from a regional perspective, not necessarily a local Colorado Springs perspective. It's looking at Park, Teller, and El Paso County. There's other plans and other studies that address some of those more, specific needs to communities, but this is looking at it from a much broader spectrum. So as that is wrapping up, we just got yesterday a draft of the final, sort of results of the Tri-County study. A lot of emphasis was on transit needs. And so that kind of, from the initial stakeholder group with, all of the county leadership and utilities and all those folks that make counties work, from a foundational perspective, they recognized from the beginning that transit was an important thing to be a part of that. And so, like I mentioned, I'll try to have Jason here probably next month or whenever he feels it's ready to present, to kind of talk about some of the transit and even some of the broadband things, some of the things that touch transit, which, as Deanna mentioned before, everything kind of touches transit, but some of the nuances that may be of interest to this group that can help enhance their abilities to operate in some of these rural communities. So that's sort of where we are with that. And Kristen, I think I can answer to the last one. I do have a question, Glenn. The last thing on here is the CDOT super call, and you mentioned earlier that it's coming out July 1. Why do I have a NOFA for June? So the NOFA that came out, that's just the NOFA. That's not the actual, people can't go in at this point and apply. Is that correct?
Yeah, my understanding is July 5th is the day for the super call. announcement. I was just trying to get an update as you were talking, so I can pass out any updated information.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It says application deadlines for 2022 Super Call. Application start date is 6/1. Application due date is 7/16. That's last year. That's what's confusing to me because it says 2022 Super Call. You are doing the 2023. So yeah,
Right.
it hadn't come out yet.
Wow, I was panicked. I thought, wow, I don't know what's going on. That's good.
Yeah.
I will get some updates though as I hear of them and
Okay.
pass it along.
Yeah, and if I don't see it come out soon, I'll reach out to you, Glenn, if you can shoot it to me, and I'll send it out to the whole MCC group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that July 5th? Is that an actual conference call to give the information about, or that's when the announcement actually comes out?
That's when the announcement is going to be coming out.
Okay, thank you.
And Glenn, I saw Ching is moving on. I know she's been sort of a main cog in the wheel. Will we have a sort of Ching backup?
That's a good question. I only just this minute found out that she had left, and kind of in shock still. I was out part of last week, so I wasn't there when that happened, and I'm just catching up on news. So I would imagine somebody is stepping in at this point. I don't know who, but I will find that out too.
Okay, great. All right, that's all I have, Kristen.
Awesome. Thank you all. We'll be looking for July 5th. Yeah. And thanks, Laura, for helping navigate that too. So action items for the next MCC meeting. Looks like we're going to talk a lot about our chairs and kind of be talking in the background about that. And then possibly some updates on the studies. Anything else that you guys want to talk about or put officially out there? Or yeah, I'm not sure if we need to discuss the specifics.
I think the biggest thing is guys, continue to send us things that come up that are that could be of interest for this whole group. We did put together kind of a core list with Dave of different topics that we thought would be of interest. We'll keep kind of plugging at that list, but I really think it would be great if you have some sort of resource that you come across, or someone who would be great to present to this group. If you've gone to a conference and we want to bring them in to speak to this group, I think that would be excellent.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, anyone else have anything to add before we adjourn? Any updates or other things you forgot to mention that are going on in your agency in the next month or so? No. Well,
We're
thanks for
having a
bearing.
festival.
What's that?
We're having a festival to celebrate the anniversary of the ADA, so feel free to come on by. I'd be happy to share information. We're going to have a big thing in the parking lot, and there's going to be all kinds of providers, and it's going to be a good time.
Oh, cool. When is it?
Is it like the 15th? I don't know.
Okay.
I can't remember, but I'll send out the information so y'all can come on down and hang out. It's going to be a good time.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Deanna, I think it is on the 15th, but I'm not 100% sure.
Cool. Yeah, I'll send you guys out a personal invitation. So y'all.
Yeah.
Deanna sent me a personal invitation.
Awesome.
Deanna, how many years has the ADA been? Is it 50 years?
No, but it feels like it's not. It was in 1990, and then yeah, signed by the first George Bush. So yeah, many moons ago, and we're still waiting for full accessibility. That's what we're station.
But the festival is celebrating how many years of the ADA?
32.
32. Okay.
That's awesome.
I thought it was longer. So.
No, 1990. Yeah. July 26th.
All right.
Awesome. Well, if there's nothing else, thank you guys for your patience today and joining us. I think we had some really good discussions today. Probably one of our longest MCCs in a while. So good job. Good discussions. So we're going to adjourn at 10:47. And I hope you guys have a wonderful 4th of July holiday and stay safe and good luck with recruiting people. And if you find the magical secret, please share it with the rest of us in the meantime. So take care, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Have a good one.